Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to fourth quarter and full year of 2020 Momo Incorporated earnings conference call. And at this time, all participants are on listen-only mode. And after the speaker's presentation, there will be a question-and-answer session. And to ask a question, you'll need to press star and the number 1 on your telephones. And please note that this conference is being recorded today. I would now like to hand the conference over to your first speaker today, Ms. Kathy Peng. Thank you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, operator. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Momo's fourth quarter and fiscal 2020 earnings conference call. The company's results were released earlier today and are available on the company's IR website. On the call today from Momo are Mr. Wang Li, CEO of the company, Mr. Wang Yu, founder and CEO of Tantan, and Mr. Johnson Zhang, CFO of the company. They will discuss the company's business operations and highlights, as well as the financials and guidance. They will all be available to answer your questions during the Q&A session that follows. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that this call may contain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provisions of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Such statements are based on management's current expectations and current market and operating conditions and relate to events that involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors, all of which are difficult to predict and many of which are beyond the company's control, which may cause the company's actual results, performance, or achievements to differ materially from those in the forward-looking statements. Further information regarding these and other risks, uncertainties, and factors is included in the company's filings with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The company does not undertake any obligation to update any forward-looking statement as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise, except as required under law. I will now pass the call over to Mr. Wang. I will translate for him. Mr. Wang, please.
大家好，感谢参加今天的电话会。2020年对我们来说是艰难的一年，让我感到自豪的是，团队面对重重挑战，仍能够坚持不懈地专注于我们的核心使命，以帮助用户发现新关系，并建立有效互动。对这一核心使命的恪守，也使我们在过去1年里能够为了公司和社区的长远利益做出艰难但正确的决定。对于团队来说，这段艰辛的历程让我们收获了宝贵的成长经验。我很高兴地看到我们终于走出了暂时的困境，并变得更加扎实，能够更好地把握未来的增长机遇。
Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. 2020 was a tough year for all of us. I'm proud that my teams were able to navigate through the many challenges with relentless focus on our core mission, which is to help users discover new relationships and build meaningful interactions. The commitment to that core mission also enabled us to make difficult but right decisions in the past year for the long-term well-being of the company and our community. Getting through that bumpy journey was also a valuable growth experience for my team. I'm happy to see that we have finally come out of those temporary drawbacks stronger and better poised to seize the growth opportunities ahead of us.
我今天的发言分成2个部分。第一部分，我将回顾4季度和2020财年的主要运营和业务结果，然后会介绍一下2021年的战略重点，尤其是这些中期战略重点将如何助力我们实现长远的目标。
My speech today consists of 2 sections. In the first part, I'm going to review the key operating and business results for the fourth quarter and fiscal 2020, and then I'm going to run through our strategic priorities for the year 2021, and perhaps more importantly, how these midterm strategic priorities fit into our ambitions over the longer-term horizon.
首先，简单介绍一下财务表现。2020年4季度总营收38亿人民币，同比下降19%，但较上季度的37.7亿人民币略有增长。4季度营收高于我们之前的预期，主要得益于陌陌直播业务在年终赛事活动中的出色表现。调整后净利润8.36亿人民币，对应净利润率22%，不包含探探亏损。陌陌主 App 调整后净利润8.45亿人民币，对应净利润率28%。探探4季度总营收7.41亿人民币，同比增长100%。由于强劲的营收增长以及暂时缩减市场投入，探探4季度调整后净亏损进一步收窄至884万人民币。
First of all, a brief overview of the financial performance. For the fourth quarter 2020, total revenue was 3.80 billion RMB, down 19% year-over-year, but up from 3.77 billion RMB last quarter. Q4's revenue came in better than our original expectation, mainly because of the outperformance from Momo's live streaming business in the year-end competition event. Adjusted net income for the quarter was 836 million RMB, representing a 22% profit margin. Excluding Tantan's net loss, adjusted net income for the core Momo was 845 million RMB, or a 28% profit margin. Tantan's total revenue came in 341 million RMB for the fourth quarter, up 100% year-over-year. Adjusted net loss of Tantan further narrowed down to 8.84 million RMB as a result of strong top-line growth, as well as temporary scale back of marketing investment in the fourth quarter.
2020财年，集团总营收150亿人民币，2019年同期为170亿人民币，调整后净利润为29亿人民币，2019年同期为44.9亿人民币。营收和利润水平的同比下降，主要由于2020上半年新冠疫情的影响，以及下半年结构性调整所致。
For fiscal 2020, total revenues for the whole group were 15.0 billion RMB, compared to 17.0 billion RMB last year. Adjusted net income was 2.9 billion RMB compared to 4.49 billion RMB last year. The year-over-year decrease at top line and bottom line level were mainly caused by the COVID impacts during the first half and the structural reform in the second half of the year.
接下来具体介绍本财年的其他情况。首先是运营指标，Momo主 App 四季度 MAU 达到 1.138 亿人，环比微涨，但仍低于2019年的峰值水平。这主要是因为出于 ROI 的考虑，我们择机削减了11月和12月的营销支出。正如我们在上次财报电话会上所预期的那样，教育、电商行业及部分游戏公司激进的投放策略令获客单价居高不下，因此我们决定将部分营销支出推迟到春节后，等营销成本回落时再进行投放。付费用户数和 MAU 密切相关，四季度 Momo 主 App 的付费用户数为900万人，与上季度持平。春节后 Momo 主 App 的用户恢复情况非常令人满意，这归功于我们在春节期间和春节之后成功的营销活动，以及团队为改善基础社交体验所做的努力。这点我将在后面详细介绍。
Now a deeper dive into other aspects of the year. First, on key operating metrics. Momo Core ended the year with 113.8 million MAUs, slightly better than last quarter, but still below the peak level in the year 2019, primarily due to us optimistically lowering marketing spend in November and December for ROI considerations. As we expected on last earnings call, the acquisition cost per user was at a hyper level due to heavy spending from the education, e-commerce, and to some extent gaming companies. We therefore would rather defer part of our marketing spend till after Chinese New Year when the marketing costs came down. Paying user count, which has been pretty much in correlation to MAUs, came in 9.0 million for the core Momo, flattish over last quarter. The post-Chinese New Year user recovery on the core has been pretty encouraging, which can be attributed to our successful campaigns during and after Chinese New Year, as well as the team's efforts to improve the basic social experience, which I would like to elaborate a little bit later.
截止2020年年末，探探付费用户数为380万人，较上季度的410万人有所下降。环比减少主要有2个因素所致。第一 ，SVIP 套餐的持续放量，虽然对提升 ARPU 起到积极作用，但由此产生的提价效应对付费用户数造成了负面影响。第二个因素与 MAU 承压有关，出于与陌陌同样的 ROI 考虑，探探在四季度大幅削减了渠道获客的投入，春节期间获客成本有所下降，我们相应增加了市场投放的力度。
Tantan's paying user count came in 3.8 million end of 2020, down from 4.1 million from the previous quarter. The net decrease was attributable to the following two factors. Number one, the continuous rollout of the SVIP premium package, which had a positive impact on ARPU, a negative impact on the number of paying users due to its price lifting effect. The second factor pertains to the pressure on MAU as we substantially lowered Tantan's investment in the paid marketing channels due to the same ROI considerations as mentioned in the earlier part of my remarks. The user acquisition costs came down during the Chinese New Year holiday, so we stepped up our marketing efforts then to capture the window opportunities.
我们认为探探今年最主要的任务是重塑获客系统，优化整体市场策略，从而大幅提升营销效率。在这方面，陌陌团队拥有丰富的管理及实战经验可供借鉴。陌陌在2017年进行过类似的改革，此后在获客和后续的用户转化方面都获得了显著提升。今年我们计划按照同样的方式对探探获客进行调整。年初以来，我们的营销团队已经开展了一些初步的工作，而这些工作也印证了我们的预判。通过优化获客系统、市场策略和用户转化方式，探探的用户规模仍有很大的增长空间。2月的营销活动显示出，即便仅对营销方式做出初步调整，也能有所成效。比如营销素材及投放方式的初步改进，带来了新增女用户比例的显著提升，客单价过高的情况也得到了初步改善，同时新增留存也有所提升。当然，这方面我们还有很多艰苦的工作要做，这是我们今年最为重要的任务之一。
At the same time, we believe that the biggest priority for Tantan this year is to reshape its user acquisition system and more broadly its marketing approaches so that we can see substantial improvement in its marketing efficiency. This is an area where Momo team has extensive expertise and experience to lend. Momo undertook the same reform in 2017 and have since made significant improvements in user acquisition and subsequent conversions. We are going to implement the same playbook on the marketing front at Tantan this year. Our marketing team has already started some initial work since the beginning of the year. These early work confirmed our belief that Tantan still has significant headroom to grow its user base by optimizing its marketing and conversion approaches. Our February campaign shows that even the initial change in the marketing approach could make a difference. For example, the initial adjustment to the marketing materials and the data management system brought in a substantial increase in the female percentage in the new users. At the same time, we were also able to see some initial improvement in managing the unit acquisition cost as well as the user retention ratio. Of course, we still have a lot of hard work ahead of us, and making this one of my biggest priorities for the year.
接下来回顾一下去年我们为了更好地服务用户和社区所开展的主要工作，我将分别介绍陌陌、探探及新业务的情况。
Now let me switch gear a little bit to review the key things that we did last year to better serve our users and communities. I'm going to break this part down by the core, Tantan, and then the newer buckets within our product portfolio.
首先，陌陌主 App 方面，去年团队的首要任务是完善平台基础社交功能和用户体验，包括附近的人和附近动态，改善新用户落地体验，以及初步升级老用户召回模型。经过产品和运营的努力，4季度我们看到反映陌陌社交效率的一些最关键的指标出现了很大改善，其中用户资料页查看量、点对点消息量及围绕附近动态产生的互动量均达到2018年初以来的最高水平。回流用户30天留存率较年初提升了3个百分点，新注册用户30天留存率创2019年初以来的新高。这些活跃度指标的改善表明，尽管2020年面临巨大的外部挑战，作为帮助用户建立新关系的社交平台，陌陌主 App 的基本面在增强，这为陌陌在2021年追求进一步增长机会奠定了坚实的基础。
First of all, on the core Momo side, the biggest focus of the team last year was to improve the basic social infrastructures and user experience on the platform, including the nearby people, nearby posts, optimizing our onboarding experience, and making initial upgrade to the user resurrection model. As a result of these product and operational efforts, in Q4 2020, we were able to see meaningful improvement in some of the most important metrics reflecting the social efficiency on Momo. Among them, the number of impressions of the user profile page, the number of two-way conversations, as well as the number of interactions around nearby content has reached their peak since the beginning of 2018. At the same time, the 30 days retention ratio for resurrected users improved 3 percentage points versus the beginning of the year. The 30 days retention ratio for complete new registrations reached its peak level since the beginning of 2019. These improvements in engagement metrics show that even amid tremendous external challenges of the year, the fundamentals of core Momo as a social platform to build new relationships are strengthening. That constitutes a solid foundation for Momo to pursue further growth opportunities in the year 2021.
接下来说到探探，我这里先做个简要的介绍，王宇等下跟大家分享细节。探探在2020年取得的最重要的一项进展，就是围绕核心的滑动匹配场景，扩充出更加丰富的周边体验。今年我们将进一步加快探探的产品发展力度，提升核心约会体验，并使其更加适合亚洲的约会文化。
Now turning to Tantan, I'll be brief here and leave the details to Wang Yu later in his speech. If I were to name only one most impressive progress Tantan made in the year 2020, it would have to be that we've taken a few concrete steps toward enriching the peripheral social experience around the core swipe and match system. We'll further accelerate Tantan's product efforts this year, aiming at taking the core dating experience to the next level and making it better fit into the Asian dating culture.
除陌陌主 App 和探探之外，2020年我们在打造新 App 方面也取得了积极的进展。例如，主打低线城市年轻用户群体的语音约会 APP 赫兹，以及针对恋爱交友的音视频约会 APP 对对，均达到了第一阶段的留存和 ROI 目标。今年这两款 App 将进入第二发展阶段，在用户增长的基础上，力图实现 ROI2， 即营收水平有能力覆盖其自身的收入成本、收入分成及营销成本。ROI2 是一个重要的新项目管理指标，因为一旦一款 App 达到一个阶段，就能够形成自给自足的正循环，并具备产生利润的能力。除了这几个以 ROI 为导向的新 App 之外，我们也在推进其他几个项目，目标在社交以及泛娱乐领域建立新的切入点。此外，与2019年相比，我们现在拥有一套更加成熟的体系，可对不同阶段、不同类型的新项目进行有效的评估和管理。
In addition to the Momo Core and Tantan, in the year 2020, we have made solid progresses with the endeavors to build new applications. For example, Hertz, a voice-based dating application primarily serving the Gen Z in lower-tier cities, and Duidui, a video and voice-based matchmaking application serving users seeking more serious relationships, have all hit their respective retention and ROI targets for the first phase. This year, we're moving these two applications into the second phase, where we are going to demand the growth of users as well as the fulfillment of ROI too, which means having enough revenue generation power to cover the revenue share and the marketing costs. This is an important milestone metric in our new project management system because once the new application reaches that stage, it is rolling into a self-sustaining cycle and have the ability to contribute to the bottom line. Other than these ROI-focused new applications, we are also working on a couple of projects that aim at establishing new touch points in the social as well as the pen entertainment industry. In addition, as compared with the year 2019, we now have a much more mature system that effectively evaluates and manages different types of new projects at different stages.
接下来很快介绍一下各业务线的情况。我在这里主要讲陌陌主 App， 王宇稍后会介绍探探。首先是直播，2020年对陌陌主 App 直播团队来说是极具挑战的一年。上半年疫情给直播业务，尤其是头部消费造成了严重的打击。8月份，我们对直播业务进行了结构性改革，目的在于重振长尾内容生态，并确保该现金流业务在新的外部环境下持续健康增长。改革涉及到产品及运营端的多个领域。尽管8月的产品调整短期给收入带来了比较大的负面影响，但这将打击长期不利于业务健康发展的因素。因此，对于内容生态的改善是至关重要的一步。经过几个月的努力，我们看到内容生态已经呈现出稳定向好的趋势，营收自8月见底后也逐步企稳回升。
Now turning to a quick review across our key business lines, I'm going to focus on the core Momo and leave Tantan's part to Wang Yu. Firstly, on live broadcasting. 2020 was a challenging year for the live streaming team at the core. During the first half, the business, especially the top spending, was struck hard by the COVID impact. In August, we undertook a structural reform to the live streaming business in order to revive the long-tail content ecosystem and to make sure this cash cow business continues to grow healthily in the new external environment. The reform touched many different areas on the product and operational side. Although the initial product adjustment in August caused significant negative impact on revenues, it was a critical step in eradicating the undesirable practices that were harmful for the long-term healthiness of the business. After several months of hard work, we have started seeing positive signs for improvement in the content ecosystem. Revenues have also shown stabilization and a gradual improvement from the bottom seen in August.
值得一提的是，截止去年年底，我们通过推出新的激励方案，成功完成了王牌主播续约计划的目标。通过多年排他合同，锁定了绝大部分的高流水主播，这将为我们持续改善陌陌主 app 的直播业务奠定了坚实的基础。
It's also worth mentioning that by the end of last year, with the new incentive plan, we have successfully achieved our goal in the Golden Broadcasters contract renewal project, securing the big majority of the high-grossing performers by multiple years exclusive contracts. It will provide a solid base for us to drive continuous improvement in the live streaming business at the core.
新的激励方案也鼓舞了新主播和新工会的士气。盛典的超预期就是个很好的例子。期间涌现出一批黑马主播和工会，通过积极的表现为平台带来了营收增量。此外，我们团队能够很好的管理成本结构，充分吸收分成增长对毛利率造成的负面影响，使 Q4 毛利率稳定在 Q3 的水平。这结果超出了最初的预期，同时也显示出我们对于利润和现金流的专注度及管理能力，而非简单的追求收入层面的提升。
The new incentive plan also gave a morale boost to the new performers and agencies. The outperformance of the year-end competition was a good example of that. We had quite a few new agencies and performers emerging from the competition as hardworking and dedicated value-adding partners for Momo platform. Moreover, we were able to manage cost structure well enough to fully absorb the impact of the increase in the payout at the gross margin level, which remained flattish versus Q3. This was a much better outcome than we originally expected, demonstrating our focus and ability to grow the business at a gross profit and cash flow level rather than purely at the revenue level.
2021年，我们计划加大面向中长尾的流量倾斜力度，继续扶持新工会和新主播。同时，我们计划丰富直播品类，并扶持情感倾诉类的内容，进一步打造平台的社交属性。
Our plan in 2021 is to continuously support newcomers by diverting more traffic toward the mid to long tail. We also have plans to enrich the content verticals and to promote content that emphasize on emotional companionship in particular in order to further cultivate the social attribute of the Momo platform.
接下来介绍我们主 app 的增值业务。我对过去1年 VAS 团队的执行能力感到非常满意。在艰难的外部环境下，我们不但实现了强劲的增长，而且有效控制了发展节奏，以确保它在整体社交生态中起到积极的作用。去年 VAS 业务的增长主要得益于产品和运营方面的持续创新，比如我们不断在聊天室体验中引入新的主持人模式玩法。此外，我们还在音视频社交娱乐场景中加入了互动礼物。事实证明，这是一种可持续促进聊天室营收和活跃度的方式。在下半年，我们改造了狼人杀的核心体验，并为兴趣群组引入了一系列礼物创新玩法，两者随即都展现出良好的增长。这说明，即便是已经非常成熟的场景，只要我们不断创新用户和付费体验，就总有机会推动 VAS 进一步增长。
Now turning to VAS on the core, I'm quite satisfied with the team's execution on the VAS front during the past year. In a tough external environment, we've managed to not only deliver robust growth, but also successfully control the pace of growth to make sure it plays a positive role in the overall social ecosystem. Last year, the growth of VAS was primarily driven by innovative product and operational ideas. For example, we continue to introduce new moderated shows into the chat room experience. In addition, we also brought in interactive gifts into the audio and video social entertainment experiences. This has proven to be a sustainable lever that we can pull to drive revenue and engagement in the chat rooms. In the second half of the year, we revamped the werewolf experience and introduced a bunch of new gifting experiences into the interest group, both of which subsequently showed impressive growth. This proved that even for very mature use cases, as long as we continue to innovate on consumer and paying experiences, there is always going to be opportunity for us to drive further growth in VAS.
我也很高兴地看到 VAS 团队在专注季度营收的同时，还致力于打造未来长期的增长引擎。2020年，赫兹和对对的留存及用户规模都得以稳步提升。 同时我们为这些产品建立了清晰的商业化路径和方案。正如我刚才提到的，2021年我们仍将重点聚焦产品及用户体验，但跟去年比，也预期赫兹和对对 VANS 做出更大的收入贡献。我们认为这两款产品有潜力成为营收和利润更为长期的增长点。
I'm also pleased that the VAS team focused not only on the quarterly revenues, but also on building future drivers for the long term. Throughout 2020, Hertz and Duidui continue to show gradual improvement both in terms of retention and user scale. We now have established a clear roadmap and a standard playbook for monetizing these experiences. As said in the early part of my speech, 2021 will still be a year focused on product, but we do expect Hertz and Duidui to contribute more meaningfully to the VAS line relative to last year. We also believe that they have the potential to become longer-term drivers to both the top line and the bottom line.
以上是业务回顾，接下来进入我今天发言最重要的部分，2021年的战略重点，以及这些中期重点工作将如何推动我们实现长远的战略目标。在这一部分，我仍然会分Momo主 App、TAT 和新业务这3条线进行介绍。
Those are the business updates. Now moving to the most important part of my speech today, our strategic priorities for the year 2021 and how these midterm priorities fit into our ambitions over the long-term horizon. Again, I'm breaking this section down by the core, Tantan, and the new endeavors.
对于Momo主 App， 我给团队设定2个目标。第一个目标，利用有限的营销预算实现主站用户稳中求涨，并且取得比去年更好的 ROI。为实现这一目标，我们确定了3项具体任务。第一，在Momo主 App 上持续进行产品创新，来更好地满足未得到充分服务的用户需求。例如，我们清楚地看到女性用户在Momo上显示出强烈的社交意愿，但Momo主 App 上现有的产品和服务显然对于男性用户更加友好，这是一个我们应该也可以做得更好的领域。第二，通过Momo极速版进一步下沉到地线市场，这是去年的一个重点项目。2020年下半年，我们在产品方面也确实取得了不错的进展，但是由于不同地区采取的疫情防控措施，使我们的营销计划受到了一定的阻碍。随着今年疫情风险逐步减弱，我们仍有很好的机会来继续实施这些计划。第三，充分优化老用户召回模型。对于所有的社交媒体运营商来说，新注册用户日益成为一种稀缺且昂贵的资源，这就使得对存量用户精耕细作以挖掘更大价值变得至关重要。在这方面，Momo具备很多优势，因为我们拥有庞大的沉睡用户群体，可以利用新的社交体验唤醒他们。今年的重点工作就是升级我们的召回模型，以便进行更有效的定位和转化，并且从老用户的召回中获得更好的 ROI。
For the core, I have 2 goals for the team. Number 1, further grow the core user base with limited marketing budget and improve the ROI versus last year. Our action plan to this goal consists of 3 key tasks. A, build new social experiences within the core to better serve the underserved user demand. For example, we are clearly seeing the social desire from female users on Momo, but the product and services we currently have on the core clearly work much better for men rather than women. This is an area where we should and can do much better than before. B, penetrate deeper into lower tier markets with Momo Lite. This was a key product project for last year. We actually made some good progresses on the product side in the second half of 2020, but the marketing plans got stuck due to the measures in different regions to keep the virus under control. As COVID risk continues to tail out this year, we still have good opportunities to push the plans forward. And C, substantially refining our user resurrection model. Complete new registrations are increasingly becoming a scarce and expensive resource for every social media operator. That makes it crucially important to cultivate the value of existing users as well as the users in dormancy. This is an area where Momo has lots of edge because we have a large pool of dormant users and can leverage new social experiences to call them back. The focus this year is to improve our current resurrection model so that we can do much more effective targeting and conversion and drive better ROI from the reactivations.
第二个目标是将Momo主 App 的业务拉回增长轨道。我们需要现金流业务保持旺盛的生产力，而且这种生产力不仅要体现在营收层面，也要体现在毛利层面。相对于用户增长的目标而言，这个目标更容易实现。因为从3月份目前的发展趋势来看， 我们已经度过了最艰难的阶段，直播业务已经进入恢复轨道。Mass 业务尽管在过去2年一直快速增长，但在流量和新功能创收方面仍有很大的增长机会。作为一个社交平台，我们70%以上的 DAU 和80%以上的使用时长都发生在直播之外的社交场景。因 Mass 成为平台的一个主要收入来源，最终将会向投资者证明我们不是一个直播平台，而作为一个开放式的社交平台，在营收多元化方面是具有优势的。这是我对团队设定的2021年及未来的一个重要目标。
The second goal for the core, of course, is to get the business onto the growth track. We need the cash cow to remain productive, not just at the revenue level, but at the gross profit level as well. As compared to the user goal, this one is easier to fulfill because from the trends we've been seeing so far into March, it seems that we have already completed the most arduous part of the journey and get the live streaming business on track for recovery. VAS, albeit having been growing robustly for the past 2 years, still has plenty of growth opportunities both in terms of traffic and in terms of new revenue features. As a social platform, 70+% of our DAU and 80+% of total time spent are not related to live streaming at all. Having VAS as a main revenue source will eventually prove to the investor community our potential and advantage as a social networking product as opposed to a live streaming product. That's an important goal I set for the team for 2021 and beyond.
现在说下探探的年度目标是通过大幅提升营销效率以及核心约会体验来实现用户的稳定增长。正如我之前在电话会上所说，从目前中国的长期趋势来看，探探的用户规模和用户活跃度还有很大的增长空间。我们可以非常自信地说，探探是目前中国市场上最专注而且最有效的一款约会产品，并致力于帮助人们建立浪漫关系并实现线下关系的转化，这也是贯穿人类历史的一个基本需求。我认为探探没有理由比陌陌现在的用户规模小。实际上，考虑到未来年轻人约会文化的发展趋势，它完全有能力成长为比陌陌更大的平台。我们现在需要回答的问题是，为什么探探没有达到它应有的增长速度？这并非因为缺乏市场机会，或者有其他产品在满足用户需求方面比探探做得更好，而是因为我们自身需要在一些重要的领域做出改进。探探需要提升产品和市场投放效率，加强团队的执行能力，这样才能精准地把握眼前的增长机会。只有2个团队紧密合作，才能更快地推进这些重要工作。今年大家将看到陌陌和探探会有更深层次的合作。
Now moving on to Tantan. Our goal for the year is to deliver solid user growth by substantially improving the marketing efficiency and the core dating experience. As I said on the previous call, Tantan has huge room to grow its user base and engagement due to the secular trends that we're seeing in China. And currently, we can say with full confidence that in China, Tantan is clearly the most committed as well as the most effective dating product focused on connecting people for romantic purpose and offline relationship conversions. This is a fundamental demand proven throughout human history. I see no reason why Tantan cannot be as large as Momo today in terms of user scale. As a matter of fact, it should be much bigger than that as we see how today's young people evolve as it relates to dating culture. Now the question really is why we are not growing as fast as we should be. The answer is not because the opportunities are not there or somebody else is stronger than we are in serving that demand, but because there are important areas where we need to improve. We should make our product and marketing efforts more effective and execution more efficient, so that we hit the nail right on its head to pin down the growth opportunities that we're seeing. The two teams will need to work more closely together in order to push forward faster. This year, you will see the collaborations between Momo and Tantan moving to a deeper level.
现在说一下陌陌和探探以外的计划，这都涉及到我们正在开发的新应用。在前面我已经谈了很多这方面的情况，现在做一点补充。我想很多人都会认同一个观点，这就是未来10年。中国个人消费将迎来持续快速的增长，并将从产品驱动模式向服务和新消费驱动模式转型。未来10年，通讯技术和硬件设备也将发生巨大的变革和进步。此外，随着个人收入的增加和教育水平的提高，以及中国领先的数字化水平和对个性化重视程度的提升，当代年轻人对线上约会以及提供情感陪伴的社交产品和服务的接受度会越来越高。 未来10年内，我们很可能迎来约会和开放式社交领域的文化拐点。作为一家致力于帮助用户建立新关系的公司，我们处于以上3大趋势的交汇点，这就是为什么我们对未来增长机会感到无比兴奋的根本原因。为了更好地抓住未来的增长机遇，我们首先需要更深入地挖掘我们在既有优势领域及开放式社交领域的潜力，并把它充分地发挥出来。其次，在立足领域的基础上，拓宽业务边界，将我们的足迹拓展到其他相关领域。最后，也是最重要的一点，坚守我们的长期使命，保持足够的耐心和毅力，持续向前推进。
Now turning to the plans beyond Momo and Tantan. This of course involves the new applications that we're working on, about which I've already talked a lot in the previous sections. But there is something more to it. Many of you would agree with me that the coming 10 years will see continuous boom of China's private consumption, and it will be gearing up from a goods-driven mode toward a service and new consumption-driven model. The coming decade will also see phenomenal changes and advancements in communication technology and hardware devices. Moreover, with the rising personal income and education level, the world's highest level of digitalization and increasing focus on individuality, today's younger generations are becoming increasingly open toward the idea of online dating and broader social products and services providing emotional companionship. It's quite possible that we will see the cultural inflection point in the dating and open social space within the coming decade. As a company that focuses on helping people build new relationships, we stand at the cross-section of all those secular trends. That's why I'm extremely excited about the growth opportunities that we have ahead of us. In order to capture these opportunities, we need to A, drill down deeper in our strong areas, namely the open social space, and B, push the boundaries and expand the footprint in other adjacent areas along the value chain. And last but not least, stick to our long-term mission and have sufficient patience and tenacity to push through.
最后向大家宣布，董事会已批准了每股 IDS 0.64美元的特别现金派息方案，现金派息总额约 1.32亿美元，相当于2020年调整后归属于陌陌母公司净利润的 30%。这是我们连续第3年与股东分享经营成果，彰显了管理层对公司基本面的信心，以及为股东创造并交付长期价值的诚意。感谢各位对陌陌团队的信任。
Lastly, I would like to finish my speech today by announcing that our board has declared a cash dividend in the amount of $0.64 per ADS, which will amount to a total cash payment of approximately $132 million, or 30% of our adjusted net income attributable to Momo Inc. In 2020, this is Momo Inc. in 2020. This is the 3rd consecutive year that we've shared the fruits of our operation with the shareholders. It demonstrates management's confidence in the fundamentals of the company, as well as our commitment to creating and delivering shareholder value for the long term. Thank you for trusting Momo team.
以上就是这次电话会议我想和大家分享的内容。接下来由王宇为大家介绍探探的具体情况。
These are the things I'd like to cover on this call. Now here's Wang Yu to talk about Tantan's product and business development. Mr. Wang, please.
Thanks. So let me briefly review Tantan's operational and business development in the past quarter and our next plans. First, a quick review of the user trends and related metrics. DAU and paying users were impacted by the COVID outbreak in early 2020. By May, the pandemic in China got under control, and we subsequently saw a decent user recovery from May to early August. Since mid-August, the user acquisition cost has started to rise dramatically due to the aggressive marketing investments from education online gaming companies, and in Q4, joined by e-commerce players as well. For ROI considerations, we scaled back our spending in the paid marketing channels in Q4, which put some pressure on the user trend. During Q4, our team fully focused on improving the marketing efficiency and lowering the unit acquisition cost. The team conducted a thorough walkthrough of the system to identify potential areas of improvement and optimization. We realized that marketing and top of the funnel conversion is indeed an area where we need to make concrete improvements in order to get more efficient in driving user growth. There's actually a great deal of potential we can cultivate here. In Q4 and January 2021, we quickly put two things in place for the Chinese New Year's campaign. Number one, building up the backend infrastructure to enhance our data tracking capability so that we can provide more effective feedback to our channel partners. Number two, beefing up ad materials to make it more appealing to our target users. We stepped up our marketing efforts when competition became milder towards mid-February. We were able to see some initial positive results on the cost side. The new ad materials and channel strategy are also bringing in a significantly higher percentage of women in the new users. At the same time, the retention ratio in new users also improved meaningfully. Overall, we're on track to deliver a better March DAU than last December. More importantly, we should be able to achieve that while further lowering the marketing costs from Q4, which was already a step down from Q3. All of this gave us the confidence that this is the right path to go down. From March onwards, we are going to take bigger steps to refine our marketing approaches. I'll give more details later. Now turning to paying users. Paying users for the fourth quarter of TomTom totaled 3.8 million, down from 4.1 million last quarter. The 300,000 net decrease was due to the combination of the full-scale rollout of SVI VIP package, as well as the pressure on new users due to the decreased marketing spending in Q4. Now briefly on revenues. Total revenues for the fourth quarter reached 740.5 million, up 100% year-on-year. The growth was driven by the increase in average revenue per user, which is contributed by the live streaming service, as well as users' continuous shift towards higher priced membership services. For fiscal year 2020, total revenue was 2.37 billion RMB, up 88% from last year. Live streaming contributed vast majority of the incremental revenue, which amounted to 999 million RMB. Despite the decrease in number of paying users, gross revenue still grew 9% on a year-over-year basis, driven by the steady RPPU increase. Next, let me give you an update on the progresses that we made against our other strategic priorities. First, enriching the product experiences. One of our biggest focus for 2020 was to build supplementary features and services around the core swiping experience, so we can offer a richer canvas for users to discover and establish new romantic relationships. In the first half of the year, we introduced a brand new version of TomTom with a discovery page and nearby posts and activities, which paved the road for further diversification of our offerings. This is particularly helpful for users who found it less effective to connect and interact based on the swipe and match mechanism. Providing TomTom users with richer ways to connect beyond our signature swiping experience is an important step that we've taken to enhance user engagement, retention, and time spent. Towards end of the last year, we have also begun a limited scale testing on a new voice dating experience, which based on the early data we have been seeing could be a positive engagement and revenue driver in the coming few quarters. Another achievement for 2020 was the successful introduction of live video service, which has clearly helped us further unlock the monetization value of the platform. This was particularly helpful when our membership business was under the COVID-related pressure. At the same time, we have also been extremely careful in monitoring and pacing the growth of live streaming service to make sure that it plays a complementary role to the core dating experience and does not harm the overall dating ecosystem. So far, live streaming has been fitting well into the dating ecosystem without showing any significant undesirable results. In comparison with core Momo live streaming, TomTom's paying user structure and performance revenue contribution are much more decentralized and long-tail driven. TomTom's showrooms are relatively small with fewer concurrent users, but very interactive. In smaller showrooms, you do not have to pay a huge amount in order to get quality interactions. So the relatively flattish distribution structure is very helpful in enhancing the social attributes of the live streaming experience on TomTom. Our intention is to keep our live video channels that way this year. For that reason, we're going to continue to control the pace in adding revenue-oriented operational efforts, especially those that aim at increasing the RPPU or otherwise cause centralizations. In late Q3, we also started rolling out the new SVIP membership package. The new package includes some existing popular membership privileges, as well as a number of new premium features added to the package. The goal of introducing the SVIP is, of course, to offer new value-added services to the dating community. However, we do have a rationale on the business front as well. During the past couple of years, we have consistently observed a key trend that young people in China are demonstrating strong willingness and rising consumption power to pay for dating services. I believe that such trend is going to continue or even accelerate in the coming decade. Long-term wise, the best way to take advantage of such secular trend is certainly to supplement the subscription-based model with a good non-sub-based value-added service mechanism. This is indeed one of our key priorities in the coming few years. But for the time being, within the subscription model, we also need a mechanism whereby we can adjust the average selling price, which is by nature more rigid within the submodel. SVIP is our attempted solution here. So far, such solutions have been working pretty well, both in terms of how the user receive it and in terms of hitting the goals we are trying to achieve on the business side. After the rollout of SVIP, we ceased to offer some previously existing features such as separate VAS items. Our general principle in making price decisions is to maximize revenue. The combination of merchandise replacement and the price strategy led to a de facto price lift effect, which caused the number of subscribers to decline and our people, on the contrary, to rise. As we expected, Q4 VAS revenue indicates that full-scale launch of SVIP is positive to the overall revenue. For the users who churned the previous package but yet subscribed to SVIP, we plan to board them back over time via paywall strategy or new VAS features. Therefore, this approach actually leaves bigger room for us to drive paying user expansion as well as revenue growth in the future. Those are the key updates about the year 2020. Now that we've started the new year, I'd like to briefly talk about the key things on our agenda for 2020-21. As Wang Li mentioned, our growth is the top of the top priorities for Tantan this year. Two areas that are crucially important for us to achieve this goal. First, significantly improve marketing efficiency. The second, make the core dating experience more appealing. On the marketing side, there are a number of things that we need to do. Number one, we're going to further optimize our user acquisition system. Although we have made some initial progress in beefing up our channel marketing approach, we still have a lot of work ahead of us. These efforts range from making fundamental changes to the backend infrastructure, such as enhancing our data tracking capability and feedback system, to improving the ad materials and adjusting them based on the outcome of the campaign. Number two, optimize our user conversion model so we can drive better ROI for user acquisition. Number three, enhance our brand awareness. Tantan is a relatively young brand. There are still many people who are not using Tantan because they have not heard of us before, or yet to be fully aware of the core value Tantan can provide. We will invest more to empower our brand equity and drive user awareness this year. The second area we need to improve is to enhance the core dating experience. While Tantan is undoubtedly the most dedicated and effective dating app in China, we do have many opportunities to optimize so we can do better in connecting the users for romantic purposes. The most near-term priority is to make our swipe and match system more effective. Our efforts include upgrading the user tagging system to generate better portraits of each of the Tantan users, and based on the tagging and other aspects of big data mining, optimizing the recommendation engine to make more relevant pushes. We want the users to genuinely feel that Tantan understands what they're looking for on the platform. While continuing to strengthen our dating-related product offering, we're also going to keep exploring more diversified features and services to make the Tantan experience better fit for Asian dating culture. This in turn will further improve user engagement and retention, which will translate to user growth. Those are the key things that I'd like to cover for today. So let me pass the call over to Mr. Jonathan Zhang for a financial review. John, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. Let me briefly take you through the financial review. Total revenue for the fourth quarter 2020 was 3.8 billion RMB, down 19% year-on-year, up 1% quarter-on-quarter, exceeding the high end of our revenue guidance, primarily due to the better than expected outcome from the year-end competition event in live streaming business. Non-GAAP net income attributable to Momo was 836.4 million RMB compared to 1.25 billion RMB for the same period of 2019, or a 33% decrease year-over-year. Total revenue for fiscal year 2020 was 15.02 billion RMB compared to 17.02 billion for 2019, down 12% year-on-year. Non-GAAP net income attributable to Momo for 2020 was 2.9 billion RMB compared to 4.49 billion RMB for 2019, a decrease of 36% year-on-year. The year-over-year decrease in top line and bottom line was due to the impact from the pandemic during the first half of the year and the structural reform in the second half in 2020, partially offset by Tantan's rapid growth in revenue and narrowing loss. Looking into the key revenue line items for the quarter, firstly, on live broadcasting, the total revenue for live broadcasting business for the fourth quarter 2020 was 2.33 billion RMB, down 31% from the same period last year and 2% from last quarter. Core Momo's live broadcasting revenue totaled 1.92 billion for the fourth quarter, down 43% from the same period last year and 3% from last quarter, while Tantan's live broadcasting revenue amounted 404 million RMB, 2% up from previous quarter. Moving on to VAS revenue, from the value-added services reached 1.4 billion RMB, up 18% year-on-year, 5% quarter-over-quarter. Revenue from VAS, excluding 336 million from Tantan, reached 1.07 billion RMB for the fourth quarter of 2020, a 30% increase year-over-year, 7% increase sequentially. The solid performance of Momo's core VAS business was primarily driven by the team's focus on product innovation and effective operational efforts. Audio and video-based social entertainment experience continued to generate strong growth momentum and was the biggest revenue driver for the core Momo VAS services. Now let me briefly review the cost and expenses items for the quarter. Our non-GAAP cost of revenue for the fourth quarter of 2020 was 2.02 billion RMB compared to 3.32 billion for the same period last year. Non-GAAP cost of revenue as a percentage of total revenue was 53%, an increase from 50% from Q4 2019. The non-GAAP gross profit margin for the quarter was down about 3% from a year ago. The decrease was attributed to the following factors. Number one, high payout ratio from the core Momo's live broadcasting business. Number 2, lower gross margin for Tantan as its live broadcasting services revenue has become increasingly sizable. Number 3, higher payout ratio from core Momo VAS business due to the robust growth coming from audio-video-based social entertainment business, a big part of which involved third-party professional moderators. And number 4, certain fixed nature cost items such as headcount, depreciation of fixed assets related impacted the gross margin negatively as the total revenue declined, and these items represent a higher percentage of total net revenue. On a sequential basis, the non-GAAP gross margin remained flattish compared to Q3, much better than our original expectation. As Wang Li mentioned earlier, in Q4, we successfully locked down a vast majority of existing high-grossing broadcasters by rolling out a new incentive program. We originally had expected this new plan to have a couple of percentage adverse impact on the gross margin. However, the team was able to optimize the overall cost structure so that the gross margin remained the same as in Q3. This demonstrates the management's commitment to drive healthy growth of the business, not only for the revenue aspect, but also as the gross profit and cash flow level. This year, we will focus better supporting mid to long-tail broadcasters and further strengthening the content ecosystem. A very important step for us to achieve that goal is to provide better motivation and recruit new talents so that we can maintain a good metabolic system. To serve that goal, in Q1, we made another adjustment to our incentive program to make it more attractive to the newcomers. We currently expect this new program to have a couple of percentage impact to our gross margin starting from Q1. In return, we now have a well-rounded incentive program that can provide sufficient motivation to all important broadcasters in our ecosystem. Non-GAAP R&D expenses for the quarter was 286.5 million RMB compared to 244.3 million RMB for the same period last year, representing 7.5% and 5.2% of total revenue respectively. We ended the quarter with 2,394 total employees, of which 807 are from Tantan. The R&D personnel as a percentage of total employees for the group was 57% compared to 58% for last year. Non-GAAP sales and marketing expenses for the fourth quarter was 654.1 million RMB, or 17.2% of total revenue, compared to 554 million RMB, or 14% of total revenue for the same period last year. Non-GAAP G&A expenses was 134.5 million RMB for the fourth quarter 2020 compared to 151.7 million RMB for the same quarter last year, representing 3.5% and 3.2% for the total revenue respectively. The non-GAAP operating expenses as a percentage of total revenue was 28.3%, an increase from 22.4% from Q4 2019. The increase was mainly due to the negative operating leverage as a result of a decrease in total revenue. Now briefly on income tax expenses. In Q4, the company received an approval for qualification of key software enterprise for one of our major profit-generating entities to enjoy a 10% preferential income tax rate for the fiscal year of 2019, which enabled us to lower our tax rate for the entity from 12.5% to 10% for fiscal year 2019. Therefore, we subsequently reversed the over-accrued tax liability of RMB 113 million to reduce the current quarter income tax expenses. As this qualification application is assessed by the relevant tax authorities annually, we make these tax adjustments upon receipt of our approval notice going forward. Now turning to balance sheet and cash flow items. As December 31st, 2020, Momo's cash equivalents, short-term deposits, and long-term deposits totaled 16.48 billion renminbi compared to 15.23 billion renminbi as of December 31st, 2019. Net cash provided by operating activities in the fourth quarter was 1.04 billion renminbi. Lastly, on business outlook, we estimated our first quarter revenue for 2021 to come in the range from 3.36 billion renminbi to 3.46 billion renminbi, representing a decrease of 6.5% to 3.7% year-on-year, to a decrease of 11.5% to 8.8% quarter-over-quarter. For Q1 2021, on a year-over-year basis, we expected the total revenue from core Momo to decrease in low teens percentage. Total revenue from Tantan is expected to grow in the high 40s percentage. Please be mindful that the forecasts represent the company's current and preliminary view on the market and operation conditions, which are subject to change. That concluded our prepared portion of today's discussion. With that, let me turn the call back to Kathy to start the Q&A. Kathy, please.
Yeah, actually just a quick reminder for the people who are in the queue to ask the question in Chinese first and perhaps follow with English translation by yourself. And also if you could limit the number of questions to 1 to 2, that would leave more time for other people to ask questions. Operator, ready for questions? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, you need to press *1 on your telephone, and to withdraw your question, press the pound or hash key. And please stand by while we compile the Q&A roster. Once again, please press *1 for your questions. First question comes from the line of Thomas Chong of Jefferies. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
晚上好，谢谢管理层接受我的提问。我有2个问题。第一个呢，想问一下，就是我们在春节那段时间呢，到现在我们看到我们Core Momo 跟探探呢的用户数跟那个收入端呢，可以分享一下这段时间的表现嘛？另外的话呢，还想再问一下，刚刚提到 Q1 Core Momo 探探的一个 guidance。想问一下，如果是看全年的话呢，大概的情况可以分享一下吗？第二个问题就是关于成本端那边，刚刚我们也提到我们的 ROI 这个marketing 的 strategies， 想问一下，我们看今一年的话，在那个marketing 的 spending 还有这个 margin 呢，可以分享一下这个方向吗？Thanks management for taking my questions. I have 2 questions. The first one is about the user and the revenue trend during and after Chinese New Year for Core Momo and Tantan. And also, can management comments about the whole year outlook, if possible? And my second question is about the spending. Can you comment about the marketing spending for this year, as well as the overall margin outlook? Thank you.
谢谢你的提问。那关于第一个问题是这样，春节长假结束后呢，到现在差不多是5周的时间。应该说，在这5周的时间里，陌陌主站不管是流量还是流水的恢复情况呢，都是非常乐观的。我认为这主要跟3个因素有关。一是去年我们在提升社交基础体验方面所取得的成绩，那2是下半年改善社交生态的成果，那3是这个渠道方面在春节以及节后采取的正确策略。
Let me translate first. It has been around 5 weeks after the Lunar Year holiday. During that period of time, it's fair to say that the Momo core has been seeing pretty encouraging recovery trends, both in terms of traffic and in terms of grossing. I would attribute that positive trajectory to 3 major factors. One is the progresses that we made in improving the basic social experiences last year on the core. And the second factor is the fruits coming out of the structural reform in the second half of the year. And the third factor is the right approaches that we adopted on the channel marketing side, both during and after Chinese New Year for the core Momo.
具体来说，用户方面，那主站呢进入3月以来 ，DAU 已经显著的超过了12月的平均水平。流水方面的话，直播和 VAS 虽然春节前后3周仍然有比较明显的下降，但到目前为止，直播已经进入了稳定回升的轨道。VAS 的表现非常出色，流水已经大幅超过了节前的水平。那看起来 Q1 环比去年 Q4 应该会有明显的增长，同比增长率呢也会有明显加速。这是我感到非常满意的一点。
More specifically, on the user front, the average DAU so far into March on the core has already exceeded last December's level in a pretty meaningful way. On the grossing front, we did see a pretty significant decline in both live streaming and VAS during the 3 weeks around Chinese New Year. But up until now, live streaming, it has already entered into a period of steady improvement, and VAS has truly been an outperformer here. Its grossing has far exceeded the pre-Chinese New Year level. It looks like that in Q1, we are going to see a pretty meaningful sequential growth from last Q4, and even on a YOY basis, we are going to see a very notable acceleration, which is very impressive to me.
然后全年来看的话，尽管现在我们不能够有确定性的指引，但我可以分享一些趋势性的看法。那么对于直播呢，我们还是会以巩固内容生态、拓展和丰富中长尾内容为主，稳字第一，不太会采取激进的刺激营收的手段。但是随着生态的逐渐恢复呢，消费也会在1季度基础上缓慢而稳步的恢复。而且就像我说的这个稳定上升呢，我们不仅需要营收层面的稳定上升，也需要毛利额层面的稳定上升。那主站 VAS 增长机会会比直播要多，而且从产品和流量分配导向上，我们今年也会更加偏向 VAS， 因为相对直播来说的话 ，VAS 更加扁平化，也更容易发挥社交平台的优势。我们预计今年 VAS 同比仍然会快速的一个持续的增长，收入占比呢也会持续的提升。在集团层面，Q1 VAS 收入预计会占到直播的接近80%。那未来我们希望在这个基础上呢继续提升。这是陌陌作为一个社交平台区别于其他娱乐平台的根本优势。那么今年呢，大家会看到我们把这种优势更好的发挥出来。
For the whole year, although now it's still a little bit too early to get very prescriptive, but here are some big trends that I'm ready to share. For live streaming, I think this year will still be about improving the content ecosystem, enriching and diversifying the long-tail content. So I would definitely put stabilization as the #1 priority. And for that reason, I'm not going to adopt aggressive approaches to stimulate short-term revenue. But as the overall content ecosystem continues to recover, the spending is also going to see steady and gradual improvement on top of Q1. And as I said, we need that steady improvement to happen not just at the revenue level. We need it to happen at the gross profit level as well. For VAS on the core, we're actually seeing a greater number of growth opportunities in relative to live streaming, and also from a product and traffic allocation perspective, we are also going to be leaning more toward VAS because it does have a more flattish distribution structure in comparison with VAS does have a more flattish distribution structure in comparison with live streaming, and it is also more tightly knitted into the advantage that we have as a social platform. So my expectation is that this year VAS is still going to be growing very robustly on a year-over-year basis. As a percentage of total revenue is also going to continue to rise. At the group level, I think the VAS revenue in Q1 is expected to reach close to 80% of live streaming revenue. In the future, I'm also hoping that we can continue to drive up that ratio from there. That is the fundamental differentiation and advantage that we have as a social platform, as opposed to other entertaining providers out there in the market. I think this year you guys are going to see us capitalizing on that advantage and differentiation in a bigger way than we did in the past.
至于探探春节以来的趋势呢，我们刚才设计了一些，那么再请王宇来具体谈一下吧。
And now here's Wang Yu to talk about Tantan.
Okay, so firstly, let me elaborate a bit on the Q1 trends. In January and early February, we pretty much focused on bettering our user acquisition materials and fixing other technical stuff in order to make the Chinese New Year campaigns more effective. So the December week user trends continued in January and early February. The user data started ticking up from late February. As said, we're on track to deliver a better March DAU than last December, while further lowering the total marketing cost from Q4. Revenue-wise, we had pretty strong seasonality this year due to the streaming services, because we have the big majority of our live streaming revenue coming from long-tail broadcasters who are difficult to manage. The broadcasting time and the number of channels saw a very significant decline during the winter holiday period, causing the revenue to see a deep dive and also a slow recovery. Now the supply has come back, and we expect the revenue to gradually ramp up from Q2 onwards. Now some thoughts about the whole year. User growth is the single most important priority for Tantan this year. We had some initial success in sorting out the user acquisition approach in the post-Chinese New Year campaign. It definitely shows that we are heading towards the right direction. In the coming few months, we've lined up a few other new product updates, most of which aim at further improving the retention ratio on the platform. We are confident that with these product and marketing efforts, we're going to see solid user growth this year. Revenue is not one of the top priorities for the company this year. Neither is profit. We certainly care about top and bottom line, and long-term wise, it should be the outcome of user growth. But if this year any of the financial goals temporarily goes against the product and user goals, we will definitely put the latter on top. Here's an example. As I said, after we adjusted our marketing approach, Tantan now has a much higher percentage of females in the newly acquired users, which is going to be a big benefit for the dating ecosystem. However, that actually lowers the paying conversion ratio pretty significantly because women are much less likely to pay than men. Previously, we would have tried to reverse that change to raise the paying conversion because we need to meet quarterly numbers in revenue and paying users, etc. But this year, this is going to be an example that we're going to put the short-term numbers aside and focus on what's really important for our future. That said, I believe overall we're still going to see pretty decent growth on the top line for 2021. Here are some drivers for it. Firstly, user growth will drive VAS growth. Secondly, we're going to be rolling out a few new monetization features this year. Some of these are sub-based and others are a la carte. For example, the virtual gifting around the voice dating experience, that could further drive the RP on the VAS. For live streaming this year, we'll make it subservient to the product and VAS goals. This year, we also prefer not to go any further in terms of raising monetization levels. Putting everything together, most likely we'll end this year with the majority of revenue coming from VAS, which goes more hand in hand with coordinating in relation to live streaming. Thanks.
Hi, Thomas. This is Jonathan. Let me address your second question. On the marketing strategy, for core Momo, actually, we are looking to keep the same level of channel investment, for the payment for the marketing channels. Similar dollar amount from last year. However, as Wang Li said, this year some of our new apps are gaining traction, and we do like to keep the flexibility to invest more to grow the users and revenues for those new initiatives. But however, we are focusing on the revenue growth on those new apps. So I guess we are probably looking to increase the marketing resources available for those new initiatives. We're looking at probably around 1 to 2% of total revenue for core Momo. But however, we will need to make adjustments on the spending level or the spending plan, on an as-we-go basis, because a lot of it is really depending on the performance of ROI. So that's the moving piece. For Tantan, as Wang Yu just mentioned, Tantan's team placed the top priority on user growth. So we're going to spend, how much they're going to spend, we're going to really, it will really depend on the pace and magnitude of the improvement of its marketing efficiencies and product rollout. So if we move faster, we will spend more. But however, the vast revenue will grow up more. And if we need more time, we'll spend less, and the vast revenue will ramp up a bit slower. So instead of managing the line-by-line target, we are more focusing on targeting a range of bottom line. At this stage, we are looking at further narrowing down the adjusted net loss for 2021, down by 150 million to 200 million renminbi from last year's level. So that's on the Tantan side. In terms of a margin trend, on top of the additional potential spending from core Momo, on the gross margin side, as I mentioned during the prepared remarks, due to the newly launched incentive program for new broadcasters, we do expect 2 to 3% margin impact on the gross margin side, and that's for starting from Q1. You can apply that throughout the year. And However, there are other factors probably will impact the margin on a quarterly basis, such as the revenue mix might have some impact. But however, we don't expect this impact will be significant. So overall, the gross margin will see a 2 to 3% downtick for the year, and also the potential higher selling marketing expenses from Momo. Thank you.
Operator.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, operator, we're ready for next. And maybe in the interest of time, this will be the last one we take in.
Yes, thank you. Yes, our next question is from the line of Tian Hou of TH Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, management. Just a question on the VAS. Look at the financial results. VAS growing was pretty rapidly, and also Mr. Wang expressed enough confidence for 2021. So, can Mr. Wang elaborate a little bit further on the drivers for VAS continue to grow in 2021? That's my question.
谢谢你的提问。那么关于 VAS 未来的一个发展预期呢，我是这么看的。那我们认为 VAS 的一个产品创新的空间呢，和营收增长的空间还比较充足。Momo 上80%的使用时长分散在直播以外的各种社交场景。那这部分用户的一个商业化价值呢，还存在很大的挖掘空间。另外，除了 Momo 和探探之外，今年我们开始呢，新的 App 也会开始产生一些比较成规模的营收增量。这个也会令 VAS 成长空间延伸到这个 Momo 的核心之外。
With regards to the future outlook for VAS, we are actually seeing plenty of growth opportunities in VAS, both in terms of product innovations as well as revenue growth. As I said, over 80% of the time spent on Momo is in a variety of social experiences that are not related to live streaming at all. There is actually a lot of potential that we can cultivate in this big pool of users and traffic. In addition, other than Momo and Tantan, this year some of our newer applications are also becoming more meaningful revenue contributors, and that could push the VAS opportunities beyond the core Momo.
那么2021年的增长呢，我觉得主要来自于以下几个方面。那一是这个聊天室玩法的持续创新，例如这些互动礼物的创新开 TV 玩法的创新，都会带来收入的明显增长。二是围绕新的 App 和新的付费场景的收入机会，比如说赫兹、对对以及站内的缘分交友等等，还有我们现在在测试的当中的另外几款新的付费体验。那这新机会在营收方面正在逐渐成熟它们也会成为 VAS 更加长期的一个增长动力。第三呢，就是老业务的创新。比如群组是一个2012年就有的产品在引入新的礼物体验之后呢，2020下半年出现了非常明显的营收增长，是主要的营收增长来源之一。今年在1对1礼物和群组方面，我们会持续的引入新的玩法，来激活用户的付费意愿。
More specifically, I think in the year 2021, we are mainly looking at several key drivers. Number one is we're going to continue to bring in new product innovations into the chat room experience. Things like the new interactive gifting experience, the new gameplays into the karaoke experience. All of these have proven to be effective levers that we can pull to drive continuous growth in the chat room. And the second area of growth is the revenue opportunities around the new applications and the new paying experiences that we're testing. Things like Hertz and the video matchmaking experience both within our core website, which is 缘分交友, and as a separate application, which is 对对. Other than these, we also have a couple of other paying experiences that we're testing. these new opportunities are increasingly coming into fruition on the revenue side, and so they can be more of a longer-term driver for the VAS line. And the third driver this year is going to be the innovations within the older experiences. For example, the interest group is an old experience that has been around for many years, but have been around since the year 2012. But after the introduction of new gifting experience, it started growing very impressively in the second half of last year, making it actually one of the most important drivers for the VAS line. This year, we also have plans to continue to introduce new stuff into the one-to-one chatting and also the group chatting in order to activate people's willingness to pay for VAS.
那至于探探的 VAS 呢，无论是用户还是 UP 还是付费场景方面呢，都处于早期的阶段。那么今年的一个最大重点呢，还是用户增长，而不是急于拉动其他营收杠杆。那么但未来3到5年内，探探在 VAS 方面的营收潜力一定会在陌陌之上。
Now about Tantan. Tantan's VAS is actually at a very early stage of development in terms of user growth, ARPU, and the overall expansion of paying experiences. I think obviously the biggest priority for Tantan this year is on user growth instead of pulling other revenue levers. But actually in the coming 3 to 5 years, Tantan should actually have bigger revenue potential in the form of VAS than Momo has today. I think we're approaching the markets open, so that will be the last question that we take today, and that also wraps up the conference call for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next quarter. Operator, we're ready to close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the conference. Thank you for participating. You may now all disconnect.